Hello and welcome to the show. Well, despite a lot of fears about coronavirus, participation rate in Sydney in particular continues to be very high at the auctions over the weekend. Kevin Brogan with all details, back in just a moment. Outsourcing will dramatically improve your productivity and profitability. Sure Agents have created a staffing solution to provide great staff who can perform duties in property management, sales, marketing and administration, and at a fraction of the cost, giving you and the team more time to spend on the dollar productive tasks. With rising costs and slowing revenue, the focus must be on value for money. Check it out, sureagents.com. Kevin Brogan from CoreLogic, of course, my guest every Monday as we look at the most comprehensive wrap of the initial and preliminary figures right around the country. Kevin, welcome to the show once again. I mentioned at the outset there about coronavirus. What's your take on that before we get into the results, mate?
Oh, look, I think it's something that we shouldn't underestimate, but by the same token, we shouldn't be overstating the impact. I think, as you said in your introduction, the clearance rate in Sydney does point to very high levels of participation by buyers, bearing in mind that the properties were probably listed quite a long way before there was this sort of awareness of coronavirus. We've seen a couple of instances. There was actually one in Adelaide where an auction was attended by somebody who'd recently returned from China, and there was some sort of self-isolation fallout from that. But generally speaking, I think people's behaviours are modifying. I've just been to the airport and there are lots of hand sanitizer stations and people are using them, but they are still choosing to go out into crowded places. So
yeah, I flew to Sydney on Friday last week, and I've got to say the whole time on the flight, both airports, I only saw 2 masks. So I do think it's good advice. You say we should be aware of it, but not sort of too alarmed by it. So we'll just see how it pans out. Okay, mate, let's get straight to the preliminary results. We'll bring them up. And you mentioned there about Sydney, 82.6%. That is good participation on 811 auctions.
Yeah, so the number of auctions is down a little bit on last week, but 800 auctions or so is still a pretty brisk business. And as you pointed out, the level of participation and the clearance rate on a preliminary basis being at 82.6% does show that the strong market conditions that we've been observing for the first quarter of 2020 are continuing.
As we noted on Friday, auction numbers out of Melbourne are well and truly down. A public holiday there this is a long weekend in Melbourne and also in Adelaide. 68.6%. Were you surprised by that? Is it surprisingly low, Kevin?
Look, it's always difficult where numbers are impacted by a public holiday because obviously this is almost 1,000. In fact, it's over 1,000 fewer auctions than last week. So some auctions were listed last week, knowing that this week was probably going to be impacted by the holiday. And with that lower activity, you potentially have lower participation rates by prospective purchasers because it's a long weekend and they may prioritize other things above house purchasing. So, the preliminary clearance is down about 10%, but I don't think we can read too much into that at this stage, simply because it's really clear to see the impact on the vendor side of the equation with fewer listings. It's not quite so obvious what the impact is on the purchaser side of the equation, with people simply deciding to do other things other than attend auctions.
Yeah, interesting with numbers. There was a report out over the weekend that Brisbane prestige numbers are down. Very few listings coming onto the market at the top end. So it will be interesting to see if that tracks in other parts of the country as well. Let's have a quick look at some of the other Cap City auction preliminary rates as we bring them up on the screen. 53.2% out of Brisbane, Adelaide 63.8%, Perth 58.3% and Canberra 66.7%, giving us a weighted national average, according to CoreLogic, of 74.8%. Let's take you now to the Sydney sub-regions. We'll bring that graphic up on the screen. Kevin, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, we've again seen some fairly strong performances out of these subregions that we expect to. Ride has been perhaps just a little bit volatile recently, with a couple of weeks where they had a lower clearance rate, but here they've responded well, 95%. The inner southwest, a slightly busier region at 93.4%. And the eastern suburbs, where we see the largest amount of activity across the subregions, at a very strong 87.2%. I think we do see a little bit of a weaker result out of the southwest, but again, that's not one of the bigger auction regions.
Our top sale out of New South Wales and Sydney, in fact, it's the top sale in the country, 6.1 million for a property in Woollahra. Woollahra, very, only 5 or 6 kilometres from the central CBD. Very well known for beautiful tree-lined streets, Kevin.
Absolutely. Look, and this property in sort of pole position within an absolute blue chip area. It's just across the road from Centennial Park. It's also sold with approval for double parking and a pool. Now, I mean, the double parking is absolutely at a premium in this area. Last sold in 2015 for 3.425 million. We see the average length of ownership in Woollahra sort of up above that 10-year mark, but only just about 10 and a half years. And we've actually seen the median price at 1.214 million, and that's down on 2018, but it's recently been trending upwards fairly strongly as we see that top end of the market leading the recovery phase.
Let's have a look inside the top sale out of New South Wales. Top sale in the country at the weekend was this home in Woollahra, sold by the agencies Ben Collier and Fraser Turver for $6,100,000. The new owners will live right in the heart of Woollahra, famous for its quiet tree-lined residential streets and village-style shopping centre. Just a leisurely stroll down to the village delights of Queen Street and esteemed schools with the recreational activities of Centennial Parkland right across the road. As a bonus, the home comes with a coveted DA approval for double parking and a swimming pool, and is also approved for 5-bedroom contemporary transformation. That's our top sale in the weekend for the entire country, $6,100,000. Back now, we take you to Victoria. We'll bring up the sub-regions in Victoria, particularly in Melbourne. Let's have a look at those. Kevin, what are you seeing there?
Yeah, so the northeast region has put in the strongest performance of the Melbourne sub-regions at just over 80%. Not the busiest region, but the rest are reasonably sort of solid spread in the sort of mid to high 60s up to the outer east at 78.6%. Mornington Peninsula, we do see a little bit of volatility there, and quite a variety of housing stock from the sort of the sort of really high levels of value in Sorrento and Portsea to the lower levels in Frankston.
A top sale out of Victoria coming out of Canterbury. What can you tell me about that area, Kevin?
Well, Canterbury also had the highest sale that we reported last week. So this is an inner east suburb of Melbourne, very highly regarded and highly sought after. Actually, Jellis Craig, who sold this property, also sold the highest sale under the hammer on Saturday last week as well from the same suburb. Just to give you an idea how sought after the area is. Interesting to see this property. We talk about tightly held. This property was last sold in 2003, so it's been 17 years between sales. Average length of ownership 15.3 years in Canterbury. And the median house price in Canterbury is about 2.8 million. So you can see it really is one of those prestige suburbs. It is down on 2018, but we have had a really strong surge since April 2019 in the median house price. And it is only just a little bit down. It's almost made up all of the reduction in the median house price since the softer market conditions in 2018.
Let's have a look inside the top sale. It's in Faversham Road at Canterbury. With an elegant Spanish mission facade, this beautiful 1920s home has a charm all of its own. The graceful interior has generous proportions and superb craftsmanship with lots of diamond LED lights, stained glass windows and warm solid timber features throughout. The new owners have the opportunity to evolve the comfortable layout with contemporary design. The versatile cul-de-sac corner also offers a clean slate to design something refreshingly different. Top Melbourne sale on Saturday, sold by David Banks and Simon Lord from Jellis Craig for $2,890,000. Okay, we'll take you to Queensland now. Our top sale in Queensland. We're going to give the top sale out of Sunshine Coast. It was Queensland, obviously Sunshine Coast. Noosa Heads. There was a sale in Brisbane as well, but this one recorded $4 million. Reed and Co. Spectacular home, this one. Very popular street, very popular area in Noosa Heads as well, Kevin.
Oh, look, it is. I mean, the street is actually pretty tightly held. I mean, this property last transacted in 1983 for, would you believe, $155,000. So this street with northwest facing canal frontage or water frontage is really tightly held. It's interesting though that sort of Noosa overall has got an average length of ownership which is a little bit lower at 8.9 years. I think, as you say, this is a really strong result, very highly sought after, and it's in a market that's been performing really well. The median house price, again, around that $1.2 million dollar mark, and that's been steadily increasing since 2014. And we have actually seen the other indicator of a strong market here, which is strong population growth. We've seen about a 12% growth in population over the last 5 years.
Okay, our top sale out of Noosa Heads. Let's have a look inside. This one recorded sold for $4 million. Adrian Reed and Darren Neal from Reed & Co. made the top Queensland sale at auction on Saturday at Mossman Court, which is quickly becoming one of Noosa's most progressive and prestige waterfront streets, and it's very easy to see why. Facing north to the water with 20 metres of direct beach frontage, the expansive home has plenty of scale and architectural merit, and all of that moments from iconic Hastings Street. 8 bedrooms spread across 2 levels allows more accommodation than most and make an ideal holiday residence for a growing family. 22 Mossman Court, Noosa Head, sold on Saturday for $4 million. Now to the nation's capital, the ACT, and we have a look at our top sale in a moment in Wright. Tell me about Wright, Kevin.
Well, look, I finished on population growth up at Noosa, but Wright has had population growth of 461% over the last 5 years. So Wright is about 12 kilometres to the west of Parliament House, and it's one of those areas where we've seen significant construction work and new dwellings. This property is a little bit older. It's about 2013, but the average length of ownership here is only 4.6 years, but I don't think we can read too much into that because basically most of the property purchasing here has been of brand new properties. So it's not a comment, if you like, on how strong the market here is. The average length of ownership being only 4.2 years, is of interest. But looking at the median price, it's actually gone up really strongly, over 10% since 2018. So even with all that new supply coming on board, Wright is an area that people are gravitating to. And this property, as we often see with the auctions, is above that median price.
Just a touch under $1 million, so we'll have a look inside our top sale out of the ACT. Set in a sought-after position on a sizable 540 square metre block of land, This home is the perfect fit for a growing and busy family with a love for entertaining in style and space. Perfect indoor-outdoor seamless living is achieved with the open floor plan in the kitchen, meals and dining areas, flowing harmoniously through to the covered outdoor alfresco and barbecue areas. This is an entertainer's dream. Polished and recycled feature wharf timber pillars add a real sense of luxury. James Carter from Carter & Co achieved the top ACT sale on the weekend at $990,000. Okay, still to come, we've got South Australia, which we'll take you to in just a moment, and then after that to WA, then we'll give you a final wrap on those preliminary figures again before Kevin Brogan has to leave us. But South Australia, our top sale in Unley Park. We've been here before, Kevin.
Oh, look, we have Unley Park is probably about 5 kilometres to the southwest of the CBD, but this is the suburb where you will find some of the premium housing in Adelaide. Certainly Victoria Avenue in Unley Park has got some absolutely spectacular multi-million-dollar homes. We have seen in Adelaide a market which has sort of bucked the trend in 2018, where we saw quite soft market conditions. We actually saw Adelaide performing reasonably strongly. But the exception was at the upper end. So we have actually seen the median house price in Unley Park drop a fair bit. It's actually 1.35 million, which is a little way down on 2018. It's currently pretty stable, and certainly just in the recent weeks in 2020, we have actually seen a bit of an increased demand for that level of property. Average length of ownership 15.6 years, which again is one of those measures we use to speak for the desirability and how tightly held some of these areas are.
A top sale out of South Australia being made by Toop and Toop, and this one recording pretty close to the median price as well. Take you inside it. This grand sandstone villa on prestigious Northgate Street in Unley Park offers the new owners the opportunity to renovate the home back to its original former glory and supplementing more modern additions, or do nothing, live in it comfortably as is, because the villa provides comfortable living in its current form. With 3 double bedrooms, large formal lounge with fireplace, formal dining room, spacious kitchen and rumpus room with a bar and large dry cellar. Top South Australian sale at $1,395,000, sold by Peter and Eloise McMillan from Toop and Toop. And finally in the show we're going to go to WA and a lovely property on Swan View. This one's selling for quite a nice figure, $496,000, sold by Gabriella and Trevor Black from Swan Real Estate. Swan View, sounds nice.
Oh, look, it certainly does. But I think Swan View is probably representative of what's been happening in the Perth market since 2014. So we have actually seen the median sale price fall a fair way. So it's at $329,500. And that's actually fallen a fair way since the 2014 peak. This property was first put on the market in the middle of 2019 with an asking price of $639,000. So you can see that the result is that it has sold successfully, but the figure at which it has sold is a fair way down on what they were hoping to achieve when it first came to market. The population in Swan Reach, again, probably representative of what's happened in a few of these areas after the mining investment boom end in 2014. It's actually down 2.2%. So look, it's a very nice property, successful result, but the background is fairly typical for the Perth market.
Okay, well, let's have a look inside our top sale out of WA. The first thing you'll notice when you enter this property is that everything is larger than normal. In particular, there's a library that could double as a second theatre room or as a large 4th or 5th bedroom, giving you plenty of options. Other features include high ceilings, a triple garage under the main roof, and the location is within easy walking distance to primary and high schools and to shopping centres. Top sale at auction on Saturday in Western Australia, 28 Weld Street, Swanview, sold by Gabriella and Trevor Black for $496,000. Okay, back now. That takes you on a complete journey around the country looking at our top sales. And just before we leave you, we'd like to bring up again the preliminary auction results from the weekend. As we have a look at those, Sydney 82.6%, Melbourne 68.6%. Of course, the long weekend in Melbourne too. Brisbane 53.2%, Adelaide 63.8%, which is also enjoying a long weekend this weekend. And Perth 58.3%, and finally Canberra 66.7%. Kevin Brogan giving us a weighted average nationally of the capital cities of 74.8%. Well, that's our wrap for the week. Kevin, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.
Are you
Thanks
going
a lot, Kevin.
are you heading off somewhere for the rest of the long weekend?
Oh, I think my wife has a long list of jobs, including gardening. So the good news is it's absolutely sensational weather for gardening.
Good on you. All right. Kevin Brogan joins me every Monday and every Friday from CoreLogic as we look at the most comprehensive wrap of auction results right around the country. Kevin Brogan back with me again on Friday. We'll have a look at what's coming up this coming weekend. Kevin, thanks for your time.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Speak to you soon.